Hey everyone, I'm BW Roses, and I've talked about a lot of characters over the past couple of months, weeks, of who's who in the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book. But there's one character I've been wanting to talk about, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been hoping I'd talk about this character, and that's Princess Sally Acorn. Now, a lot of you know who she is, and some of you are probably just getting to know her. But let me explain who this character is to each and every one of you. You see, this character, when she first began, was designed after a character in the Sonic the Hedgehog video games called Ray the Squirrel. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, there is a Ray the Squirrel, isn't there? That's true, there is one in the comic book right now as part of the Chaotic. But this is who Sally was based off. This was supposed to be the person in Sally's place, the character in Sally's place. However, Sega decided, I guess, along with Dig Entertainment and Archie Comics, that Sonic needed a female counterpart. Now, this is way before Amy Rose was even created. And I think what Sega decided to do was, since they had a Saturday morning cartoon series coming out and a comic book coming out, that Sonic needed not only a counterpart, but perhaps a love interest. And that's how Sally was created. Now, when Sally first appeared in the comic books, she was brownish. She was brownish orange. She had brown orange fur, if you will, kind of brownish orange fur, and yellow hair. Then later on, she went to having pink fur with black hair and a headband. And then she went to what she is known as, to what everybody recognizes her as now, to the design, I should say. Now, nobody really knew why this happened. No one knew why she had changed from different colors and different designs, until it was explained in issue 29, I believe. I'm not sure if it was issue 29 or what, of the Knuckles the Echidna comic book, where she explains that the reason her fur had changed color was because during a mission she fell into a chemical vat in Robotropolis, thus causing her fur to change color. And the reason it was changing color is because she had to keep washing out all the chemicals until she was back to the way she was. Now, the pink Sally did make an appearance outside of the comic book in the Saturday morning cartoon series, actually in the pilot called Heads or Tails. But that was the only time. The second time the pink Sally appeared, she had the design everybody knows Sally as of now. Everybody knows Sally had Sally's original, or had Sally's more popular, more well-known Sat-Am design on her, but she was colored pink. And that was during the Christmas special. But anyway, getting into who Sally is. Sally is the princess, as you know, and daughter of King Maximilian Acorn and Queen Alicia Acorn, and the sister of current King Eliza's Acorn. She's also an aunt to her niece and sister-in-law to her sister-in-law Megan, who is married to Eliza's. Now, when the comic book first started, Sally was known as a leader. Basically somebody who was on a mission to restore freedom to her kingdom. And also to try to find her father. But that, however, when she was trying to find her father, would take place later on in the comic books, mostly in the issue 30, in the 30th issues and beyond. Excuse me. Now that situation was very similar to one episode in season 1 of Sat-Am, as well as in Blast of the Past and in The Void. Very similar to when Sally was trying to find her father. They incorporated that in the 30th issues. Now a lot of you might be saying, well, wait a minute, Brian, you're missing out on a few things. Well, I will explain. And a few things you're probably thinking I'm missing out on. Like the origin. Like how Sally and Sonic met, right? Now, when Sally first met Sonic in the very first issue of the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book, she met him by sneaking up on him from behind and kind of trying to keep him, basically sneaking up on him from behind and trying to prevent him from, going into Robotropolis. And saved him as well from some buzz bombers. However, that was revamped into what was introduced in Season 2, Blast of the Past, of Satyam. Basically revamped into the fact that Sonic and Sally have known each other since they were kids. That's what the comic book did. They revamped it to that. Now, however, getting back to what I was saying, Sally would go on this mission for a while. Sally would basically go on a mission of trying to find her father. Now, between all this, Sally also had garnered so much popularity that Archie Comics decided to spin her off in her own three-part comic book miniseries. So in other words, when you went to the comic book stores, or the magazine stores, or wherever, and you looked at the comic book section, not only did you see Sonic the Hedgehog, you also saw Princess Sally. Now, after that, and the fact that this was also at the same time she became the main focus, if you will, of a lot of the comic book, a lot of the Sonic the Hedgehog comic books. She became the main focus, not just in back stories, but in front stories as well. Now, as we move on forward in the 30th issues, where she tries to find her father, and into the 40th issues, where she also develops another love interest in Jeffrey St. John, who would later on marry Hershey the cat. Way later on, I should say. As we headed into the late 40 issues, she actually had Knuckles the Echidna try to look for the Sword of Acorn, who at the time was held by Mammoth Mogul. Now, as we kept moving on, after Sally had obtained at the time what she thought to be the sword, but was a fake, Sally ended up being put in danger during a saga which a lot of people talk about even today, called Endgame. Now, Endgame was very important in Sally's career and in who Sally was, or is. Because you see, the writer at the time of the comic book, Ken Penders, had decided that since Endgame was going to be a 4-part miniseries within the series, and it was going to lead into issue 50, they needed to have something major happen to really put the comic book on the map. Now, a lot of people thought issue 50 was going to be the final issue of the series, but it wasn't. What happened, however, in Endgame, was the fact that Ken Penders came up with the idea to kill Princess Sally off. Now, Ken Penders decided that he wanted to do it in a way that later on her demise would be with dignity, with enough dignity that she would not lose her fan base. However, after Ken did this, and I guess submitted the idea and showed the idea to Sega, Sega got on his case. And he had to rewrite the entire 50th issue just to bring her back and make her death, and make her look like her, and turn her death into more of a coma situation in which she was awoken from by Sonic when Sonic kissed her on the cheek. Anyway, moving forward, Sally would then lead her group of freedom fighters into restoring Mobotropolis. And as time went on, Sally was kind of in a lot. Well, Sally was also part of the Sonic Adventure adaptation, but she was also part of the fact. She was also part of the group of her group of freedom fighters. Her and her freedom fighters were part of the fact of trying to figure out where these mysterious satellites were from. So she led the charge up there, only to find out that those satellites were being controlled by Dr. Eggman, at the time known as Robo-Robotnik. But moving forward, Sally was then put into a situation, a love triangle, where she didn't know if Sonic still cared about her and loved her like she loved him, or if he cared about Mina Mongoose. Well, we found out later on Sonic still loved her and cared about her. But then even after that, after Sally and Sonic had basically gotten her parents' approval to be, I guess you could say, prematurely engaged for future marriage, Sally went through a lot of trauma, because Sonic had supposedly given his life to save the planet from the alien invading Zordad, who had placed a doomsday weapon known as the Quantum Dot. This, however, was not the case because Sonic was blown into another galaxy. And I will get into more of this in part 2.